All right, so Tim Dillon's producer, Ben, just announced that he's leaving the show. So now there's all kinds of speculation. People are wondering, obviously, why he's leaving, what happened, because him and Tim were very good friends. He was with Tim since the beginning, and now he's leaving at like the peak of Tim's career. Also, people are wondering if this is a joke. A lot of people think that they're just trolling, but this message that Ben posted to Instagram and Twitter, I believe, seemed pretty legit. It doesn't really sound like he's trying to troll at all. He said, "I've been receiving a lot of messages and comments about this, so I wanted to make something official. Unfortunately, I no longer work on the show as of the last few weeks. I'm extremely grateful for my time with the show and what it has meant to so many people. I wish nothing but the best for Tim. I'm also thankful for the support from all the people that have emailed me and messaged me over the years or I've met in person. It means a lot to me. I'm working on some new projects now and I'm excited to share them with all of you as soon as I can." So to me, this sounds like a pretty genuine post. I'd be really surprised if he's joking around here. But of course, Tim, he has to make a joke about it, and he went on Instagram and responded to this, and he said, "We love Ben and we're excited to see the new stuff he's working on. Louis C.K. will now be the producer of the show." And then he also posted this picture of Andrew Tate and said, "We have a new producer of the Tim Dillon Show. However, he's unable to log into YouTube." So if you just saw these Tim posts, you'd probably think it's a joke, but I feel like this is how Tim would react if Ben was actually leaving. He would just make a joke about it because he's never really serious. He's always joking around. So I believe it's probably true that Ben's leaving the show, and this is just how Tim is handling it. But obviously, there still is a very small chance that they are joking around, and hopefully they are, because if Ben leaves, it sounds like a lot of people are going to be upset by it, and it sounds like a lot of people on the Tim Dillon subreddit at least decided they're going to start canceling their Patreon subscriptions, and people are talking about how Tim's peaked now and it's probably all downhill from here. So if Ben is leaving, it's probably not the best for Tim, because it sounds like people are starting to think that Tim's head is getting too big. This person said, "The episodes where Ben interacts with Tim are some of the funniest ones. As much as it's Tim's show, Ben played a great part in it. I feel like Tim will fade out in a few years anyways. He might have already peaked because of the nature of how unfiltered he is. Not many people work with him on more legitimate projects, and he's gotten a lot lazier the more money he's made. No more sketches, etc. His merch is way overpriced. The Netflix special is pretty lame too. He might have already peaked. Do this for another year, invest his money in property, and then get out." And then here are some other posts. This person said, "As a fan of the podcast for 4 years now, I'm definitely less and less interested in it. Now, especially that Ben's been cut out, for sure will lose its shine. Had a good run. This is a reminder that podcasts shouldn't last forever and eventually run dry." Somebody said, "Yeah, it's the same exact thing with Rogan. After COVID and the move to Texas, he just lost touch with his listeners. It's no longer 2018 Joe Rogan, and it's no longer 2020 Tim Dillon Show." And then there are a lot more posts like this, but also I'm sure there are people saying like, "Hey, I didn't even notice Ben half the time. He didn't really add much to the show. Who cares if he leaves?" So I don't think this is going to be it for Tim Dillon. I mean, this could be the peak here, but I'm sure he's still got a good career ahead of him. He's going to be fine. But I think the biggest problem here, and some of the posts are referring to this, is people feel like Tim might be slowly getting out of touch and he's becoming too famous and he's making too much money, and now he's just looking to coast from here. And they feel like Ben leaving is confirmation for this, because Ben's been there since the beginning. He's Tim's closest friend. He is a big part of the show. A lot of people enjoy him on there. He's kind of like a laugh track for the show, and people think he adds a lot to it. And if Tim thinks that he's just expendable and he can get rid of him and his show will be the same, I think a lot of people will be turned off by that. But obviously we don't know if that's the case. Maybe Ben chose to leave because he had some personal problems, or maybe he wanted to leave because he wanted to pursue other things and Tim wanted to keep him around, or maybe he got a co-hosting spot on King and the Sting and he's taking over Theo's spot. He's going to go work with Brendan Schaub. No, I'm just kidding, but I think Tim's show will take a hit from this. I mean, I don't think it's going to be as bad as some of these posts make it out to be. I'm sure he's going to be just fine. I'm sure he's going to be making a ton of money still, and a lot of people are going to be watching this podcast. But there are definitely people that are really upset about this that will probably slowly start losing interest in the show, especially if Tim just continues on like nothing really happened and doesn't really mention Ben anymore or talk about why he left. I think people are really going to be turned off by that, because it sounded like Tim and Ben were best friends, and Tim even said he wouldn't be able to do the show without Ben, and he said Ben's his best friend and he cares about him more than anybody. So it'd be crazy if he just left, or maybe Ben just feels like he has to leave and Tim knows that's the best thing for him right now or something. Or maybe they're doing it as a joke because Tim wants Ben to realize how much he's worth to the show or something, and he wanted to see the fans' reaction to it. I don't know. Or maybe they just got sick of each other and they knew things were getting kind of toxic or something, and they thought it was best just to cut ties. Also, Tim and Ben would get into some arguments on the show, and it was hard to tell like what's serious or not, because obviously Tim is like always joking, so it's hard to take him seriously. But somebody on Reddit mentioned a few months ago on one of their Patreon podcasts, Tim and Ben got into an argument for like 30 minutes, and they said it was pretty heavy and it didn't sound like a bit. So that maybe had something to do with it. And also a few days ago, it sounded like they might have gotten into something. And Tim would just make fun of Ben a lot on the podcast. Like they're 40-minute compilations of this. But again, it's hard to tell because that's just kind of their dynamic. It's hard to tell when he's actually mad or when he's just joking around. So who the hell really knows? If Tim addresses on his podcast, I'll probably give you an update on it. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and then also leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about all this. Then hit the like button and I'll catch you at the next video.